Guys, this is Gia Felder with Gia Felder Realtor LLC, brokered by Village Premier Collection of Georgia. And today I have an inspector with me, my favorite inspector of all times. I don't know to anyone else because he's so great. He is going to help me out, and he's going to help you guys out by giving you some really good information about the inspection process, something that you have to do, something you need to do, and we're going to discuss it. So let's get started. So how about you introduce yourself, Mr. John?
Yep, as G already alluded to, John Watson, owner of Whole House Home Inspections. Do commercial, residential, even one-off type situations in terms of inspection. So a lot of investment properties, out-of-state buyers. Sometimes we'll, do septic inspections. We'll actually market those out, send those to a third party to do, but we have partnerships for other inspections. So basically anything around residential or commercial and real estate, we're out there to help you if you need them.
Nice.
So I got the dogs in the background if you hear them. Sorry.
No worries. So talk a little bit about your credentials, because some people don't understand what that means, like license, you're not licensed. What does insured or bonded even mean, if that applies to you? So just briefly, just talk about that.
Yes, so we're in the state of Georgia. So within the state of Georgia, you do not need to be licensed to be a home inspector. I will recommend you be certified. We are certified and we do have license. So we do carry a business license, but in the state of Georgia, no license is necessary. No certifications are necessary. So Gia, as a realtor, you can wake up tomorrow and say you're a home inspector, right? And, if you charge cheap enough, somebody might hire you, and then, they may pay for it later. But when you really want to get the best inspection, look for someone who, even though they don't need it, if they do have a business license, look for someone who has some type of certifications, whether that is ASHI, that's the American Society of Home Inspectors, or International Society of Home Inspections. So you guys want to have someone that's partnered with them, because they go through ongoing training, just like realtors. You all do continuous education programs. We do the same thing as home inspectors. So every year through Internachi, that's the main one that we use. We have to keep 24 credit hours per year of continuous education, whether that is advanced HVAC training, advanced electrical, plumbing, just exterior. Some people go out and do stucco inspections and get advanced training in stucco and moisture penetration. Also, you can do advanced roofing techniques. So it's a different ways you can earn those credits throughout the year. Just recently, I went through getting mold remediation and mold protocol writing and assessment. So I went through that just recently. My next class, I'm going to go through and do level 5 building code for different buildings, because especially when you're dealing with new construction, code changes every 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So we actually still working on 2018 code right now, but eventually we'll move into the new code. So they're starting to roll out some new things, and you want to be, you want to know what's going on, even though we may not go to a property and talk about code. When you really want to take care of your customer, you do want to know some of those things. So it's always about that education and getting those certifications.
Exactly. Before I go to the next question, do you have a team?
Yes, I do. So we started in May of 2018. And at this point, we have myself as the lead inspector and owner. I have an ops manager. His name is Masai. I have the longest inspector that's been with me. His name is Chris Hill. We have a guy named Rashik, who's been with us just over a year now. And I have a part-time inspector named Bernard. So yeah, we have a pretty, small team. It's intimate, but yeah, we can still, cover everything. So it seems like a large team, but at the same time, we're small. We still like to talk to all our realtors and buyers and sellers and, what have you.
Nice. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the home inspection and the purpose of it. So in your words, like, why do people need it? Because we talk about it. We get to a point where now if someone doesn't want a home inspection,
right,
we have them sign off on it and say it. That's
Sign
just
off.
how we feel that
I agree.
they should have it. So why should they come and hire you, and why should they have that home inspection with you?
That's a good question, and I'll break it down to three different things. The first thing is just knowledge. So understanding that property, the ins and outs, and there's different nuances. You can have the same property, like an identical home across the street from each other or next door, and have totally different types of defects, right? So from the naked eye and the untrained eye, you can go in and think everything's fine, but we as inspectors look at small details that can indicate something larger later on that could happen. So while we're there, we're talking about, the inspection at the time, at the time of inspection, that's what we saw. But those things can be indicators from previous issues or something that could potentially happen in the future. So that's the first thing, just knowledge. The peace of mind. So just knowing, just like insurance, you pay for car insurance, health insurance, life insurance, home insurance, you pay all these things and something could never happen. So just that peace of mind, knowing if something did happen, you have a legal standpoint to stand on because you have a document saying, hey, this is wrong. It needs to be corrected. Or you have documentation that it actually was working as it should, right? Because that's the thing. Sometimes you may have sellers who install certain items in their home that shouldn't be in the home. For a good example is if you have a septic, you shouldn't have a garbage disposal. A lot of people don't know that. The other thing is you have hardware stores, your big box stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, they sell septic safe garbage disposal, but at the same time, you still shouldn't use them. Just because somebody sell it in the store doesn't mean it should go in your home. So that's one of the things we will call out as a home inspector. Hey, you do have a garbage disposal installed, but you're on septic. Those greases and oils may, impact that system. So I would recommend removing that because otherwise that's, thousands and thousands of dollars later trying to get that septic pumped out. Then the last thing besides just, having the knowledge, having the peace of mind, just honestly knowing you did the right thing. Like, did I put my money in the right place? Because a lot of people will have buyer's remorse later on. It's just the truth. You'll find one thing to stick out at that house that you didn't like and wish you didn't buy the house. But if you get an inspection, you'll have a pretty in-depth report to tell you like I made the right decision financially with my money in terms of knowing everything that's going on with the house. And another thing is leverage. Like, say if we go in the house and we find that the ACs need to be replaced or the water heater is leaking. If you didn't get a home inspection and you didn't know, a typical water heater replacement about $1,200. You might have been planning on buying some furniture, right? Or paying some painters at $1,200. Now you have to put it into something that someone doesn't see. That's the biggest thing. Most buyers will go to a home and look at, okay, I want furniture here, I want this, I want to paint this, and they only think about the cosmetics and not the true structural integrity of the home. If we have any issues with pest or moisture intrusion, those are things you may not know where to even look at. So that's the main reason you should have home inspection: that peace of mind, the knowledge, and just overall leverage to go back to that seller and say, hey, especially in this market, hey, we're already going over asking, right? Maybe we may not go over asking, or give me a concession because I know I need a water heater.
Mm-hmm. And I think it may or may not be true, but I think there may be some home warranties that if something breaks down and you didn't have an inspection to check it out, sometimes they're like,
they won't cover it. Yeah, because that's the biggest thing. I actually had a conversation earlier about that. They actually, I think it was a 210 warranty. And they was like, hey, because it was a larger home, almost 7,000 square feet. Had 3 AC units, 3 furnace units, 2 water heaters, all outdated. Everything outdated. So if you're gonna play, pretty expensive house, I don't want to move in and within 2 months I need to replace some units. So at least try to get a warranty, and that report will back up like it actually did work at the time of inspection. So we can't warranty that. But no inspection, no guarantee they'll warranty those items.
Exactly. So let's talk about the process of the home inspection while you're there. What are the things that you are checking for? And then, of course, what are the things that you don't check for? And a lot of people
don't check
that latter.
Gotcha. That's a huge one.
So yeah, so
That's a
you don't have to
huge
go
one.
into
We
the
get
whole,
that a
like the
lot.
top things that
Mhm.
you definitely check on, that you
Gotcha.
know about, and then definitely the things that you don't check for sure.
What the biggest things overall, the structure. So your roof system, and then that attic structure, just making sure whether it's truss or rafters that they are intact, no cracks. Um, and also looking for any water damage in that attic space, right? Then the overall foundation, whether it's a basement, crawl space, or a slab, do we have any cracks there? Moisture intrusion. Do we have mold if it's a crawl space, right? We don't, you're technically not there to look for mold, but if we see it, and we'll say some type of organic substance and we'll call it out for further evaluation. We want to check that plumbing. When we talk about plumbing, the supply lines to the home, the distribution lines throughout the home, that water heater, that source, whether it's gas or electric, make sure it's operating properly, if it's installed properly, looking for leaks, of course. And the age is indicating, okay, you have plenty of life left in this should last, or, you may want to budget for replacement. The electrical, checking outlets, checking, make sure lights work, switches, making sure switches are installed properly, especially on stairs. Sometimes they're backwards or it's not a three-way light working properly. Opening up the panel, looking inside, looking for any arcing, that the breakers are compatible. That's the proper size wires. No double tapping. Double tapping is when you have two hot wires going into the same lug on a breaker or bus bar. So we look for all those things from an electrical standpoint. And also ventilation and insulation. Is the attic insulated properly? I've done plenty of new constructions this year that had the wrong level of insulation. We're in zone 2 down here in Georgia, and we should have R38. So that's about 12 and a half, 12.75 inches of insulation. I've had plenty builders miss that way with an R30. So that's the reason you should have a home inspection. Make sure it's insulated properly, it's well built, from the foundation up to the roof, electrical, the plumbing, and then overall, the most expensive thing in your home besides the roof, HVAC,
Yes.
right? It's 90 and 100 degrees daily, right? Is the AC working? And then when we get in those cooler months, does the heat work like it should? So those are the top things we look at. Our company, we go a little bit deeper, so we get into some cosmetic items also, so we can make what I call the honey-do list. So it's like, hey, you may want to do some touch-up paint here. You got a rip in the carpet or a stain on the carpet. The cabinets might need to be cleaned. So we do that also because those small little things, while you may not think they're important, they actually add up over time. Whether if it's a DIY thing, right? Okay, I can do it myself, but doing it yourself still requires time. You may have not budgeted time in your schedule to do that. You may have just wanted to move in, get the keys and move in. Sometimes you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And then if you can't do it yourself, now you need to budget that money for a painter to come in or a handyman to come fix some trim and stuff like that. So even though that's actually not required, we still, try to point those things out to a customer.
That's nice. And the things that you don't inspect.
So that we don't. So for instance, from a general home inspection, we don't check septic because it's buried. So we talk about we don't look at buried tanks. Now you can pay for an ancillary service, so it's an additional fee where we can bring out a septic tank inspector or plumber to do advanced, testing on the septic system. If we know a house has septic, we'll look for certain indications, like in the yard, we'll look and see if we see any seepage in the area where the tank may be. We'll look for that, garbage disposal, make sure it's not there. We'll run water long enough to make sure you don't have any puddling. There's been plenty of homes that were on septic. We'll run the water and then we go outside and it's flooding in the backyard or in the front yard where you smell it. So even though we're not there to actually check it, we'll still call it out if it happens, right? Another thing we don't look for is surprisingly, I had a call last year about bats in the attic. It was an attic that it was a gable vent, and I always look in gable vents for bats, but this particular home, the sellers had plastic covering the gable vent, so you couldn't see from the inside what was there. They moved in like 6 months later. They called me and said they had bats, but it's actually in my contract, and I'm not there looking for bats. But I've caught out bats at probably 20, 25 houses, in the past year or so, just because I saw it. Like it's
Right.
obvious to see if looking around, but it's not something that we technically go looking for. Same thing with termites. We don't go looking for termites, but if we see tunnels and tubes, we'll let you know about it. Another thing we don't really check for is it's kind of the big. We don't check for mold, but if we see it, we'll call it out, right? So we don't, because it actually says mold, unless you just know it from being around long enough. You would just say it's some type of organic substance that you see, whether it's mildew, whatever. But every house does have mold, and we'll explain that to people. So if you really want to know like a spore count, you actually would need to pay for, an air quality test to pull samples and send them to a certified lab to tell you if you actually have mold. But if we physically see something in the basement, sometimes we'll see it in the crawl spaces on the joists. We'll see mold, so we'll just call it out. But that's mold, septic, sewer scopes, radon. All those are like additional fees because you got to think about it. We're trying to inspect a home in a period of, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, depending on the size. We're trying to simulate activity. We're trying to pretend we're a family. One person is walking through a house trying to pretend they're 4 or 5, family, family of 4. And we want to make sure we capture everything. So to do that, we're going to hit those main things. Like I said, that roof, the entire exterior, and cladding, that foundation, electrical, plumbing, and your HVAC systems. And then anything else is like a bonus, and we try to put those in. It's about 9 categories we technically look at when we're at a house.
So I've always wanted to ask you this question, John. Are there any situations where you have said this inspection is like, this home is a failure, like total reflag, like have you had that, or do you say, okay, recommend?
I have. I'm being honest.
Like, so no, absolutely not.
I'm kind of different because I don't like callbacks. I'm just being honest. So I'm kind of different. I'm more honest with customers. I care about their well-being. I don't care about the money. So if it's a house that's literally foobar, you can't do much with it. It has a lot of issues. Now, if the person warns me and say, "Hey, we know we have the money to fix these things," fine. But if I know it's a family, like say it's a first-time home buyer, don't have a large budget, and I go through the house and say it's a defective panel, say it's an obsolete panel, like a Federal Pacific panel. They don't even make them anymore, right? They're prone to fire hazards. If I see that type of panel, say it needs a water heater replaced, say the AC doesn't work, say I got roof leaks, and then I see pest intrusion in the attic. And then I'll ask, is it a sold as is? If I know it's a sold as is and it's a first time buy and I got all these issues, this person not gonna get that house. They just not, unless they just, have unlimited budget. But I'll be honest with them, like, how big is your rehab budget? If they say, "Oh, we don't plan on doing any work," like, you may want to find another house. It's not my call, but I would tell them, like, really consider what you're going to spend, because some houses need more work than they actually present when you because I know people Photoshop pictures and stuff when they put those listings up and they look great, and then you actually get into the bones and like, oh wow, it could be perfectly clean, but you may smell mold, or smell, they may have pets, right? And it's penetrating to the carpet. So those types of things you want to think about. So it has been a few times, not a lot, but it's been a few times where the house was so horrible, and it was a first time buyer. Now, if it's an investor, we're good to go, because that's they want it ragged, they want it messed up. So those houses, we actually we more focused on those big ticket items when it's an investor. But if it's a first time home buyer, someone retiring that already, explain like, hey, we don't have a big budget for these things, I'll just let them know. It's been homes that I've walked in with the buyer side by side, and we looked around like, yeah, that's not it. And then we're just credit them for the next inspection, because I'm be honest, there's some houses you'll go in, you don't even want to inspect it, it's so bad sometimes. And I've called to get permission, like, you sure you want me to finish? Like, because it's just that bad, because you'll be there, and I try to be thorough, but yet still condense some things. But I've had times where I've had 450 pictures. I don't even want to look through all those pictures at the end of the day. So I know a buyer, I know a realtor doesn't want to look through them. So those types of things we try to save ourselves and say, hey, you might want to, think about a different property.
Yeah, I know that when you are at an inspection for me and you call me, I'm like, oh shoot.
Yeah, exactly. I want to give you a heads up, like, hey, listen.
Calling me, you're like,
I'm just trying to be. I don't want to wait because it's especially in this market. It's so tight. Why would you want to lengthen the process? Going through all this when you know that's not going to be the one. You just know it. Like after talking to the agent, talking to the buyer, and then seeing it yourself, it's like, you might want to, go in a different direction. It's just the best thing to do because people will have buyer's remorse and they're like, oh, well, I just shouldn't have got it. You're right, you shouldn't have, because you got all this information in front of you. Like this is the information age. So when you have all that information and you're not an investor, you're not, a person that's like to DIY things, go find something that's going, more suitable to you, because it's a house for everybody.